President Trump also talked last night about Venezuela, a subject over which he hasn't been saying much in the last several months. But this is what he said last night.
Maduro is an illegitimate ruler, a tyrant who brutalizes his people. But Maduro's grip on tyranny will be smashed and broken. Here this evening is a very brave man who carries with him the hopes, dreams, and aspirations of all Venezuelans. Joining us in the gallery is the true and legitimate president of Venezuela, Juan Guaido. Mr. President.
And the president then pointed to Juan Guaido, who was in the gallery and stood up and got applause from both Democrats and, not only Republicans, but from what I can see, from most Democrats as well.
That's right. There's Nancy Pelosi on the podium right behind Trump, who within minutes would be ripping up his speech, standing up and applauding.
This is why I started off my comments talking about the way that the Democrats use the same playbook as the Republicans. At the core level of, say, foreign policy, militarism and staging coups and economic neoliberalism, there isn't that much of a great difference, which is what I think the Sanders threat brings to both parties, because the Democrats are in check. I mean, I look at the irregularities in, for example, in Iowa. I'm looking at a president who has been impeached, and I look at the appointment of a foreign leader by fiat, by tweet, and now by televised speech. It's hearkening back to kind of a digital age Latin American dictatorship. We're watching what I would call the Latinoamericanización of U.S. politics, when you have the division between rich and poor being so stark. And so Guaido's being there is just their continued efforts to prop up this failed most recent coup attempt that's been going on almost 20 years in Venezuela. I've been on the show here with both of you and talked about Leopoldo Lopez, who is really the gray eminence behind the throne of the Venezuelan right, of the extreme right, because the Venezuelan opposition is vast. It's broad, and the U.S. and Elliot Abrams, who I know from El Salvador and his support for mass murders of children in places like El Mozote, is supporting the most extreme elements. And so you have here the introduction of Guaido to prop him up, but also, I think, to play against Bernie Sanders and the socialist team. You heard Trump referring to socialism. He repeated the term, just like he repeated the tropes of civilizational warfare, civilization. He even said the word barbarians. So you have terrorists, immigrants, criminals, all these code words, all this red meat, as Li Fang said, being used for the base. I mean, again, both Democrats and Republicans play to these themes in different ways, except that, for example, I mean, they both draw from a guy named Samuel Huntington, who brought us to the age of civilizational warfare as kind of the post-Cold War narrative of a United States in decline.
Also, Trump's mention of Guaido as a legitimate president of Venezuela, with 59 countries recognizing him, obscures the fact that there's over 100 countries that still recognize the current government of Venezuela.
Yeah, it's theater. It's all political theater at this point. It's a global political theater, and it's going to continue because the United States still has, after 20 years, failed to destabilize and remove Venezuelan government.
And of course, you also have the complicity of the corporate media, the mainstream media. CNN, when Juan Guaido's wife came to Washington, had a meeting with Trump in the White House, the lower third, the description on CNN was the First Lady of Venezuela, Juan Guaido's wife.
It really is absurd. I mean, I was on your show some years back when Leopoldo Lopez in 2014 tried to stage a coup, and I brought up the fact that I had been, I received death threats with a gun included from allies of Guaido and Leopoldo Lopez, his mentor. And I got calls from a guy named Agent Mike Ranger, who sounded like Captain America, curious about the death threat, and yet I asked him, how do you know about this if I didn't report it to the authorities? He says, I'm not at liberty to tell you, sir. So these are really, I mean, it's a joke at one level, but you're dealing with the extreme right, extremely violent, And I encourage people to just Google Juan Guaido and narco killers or narco murderers, and you'll see pictures of Juan Guaido at the Colombian-Venezuelan border with people that the Treasury Department has identified as hardened, mass-killing narco terrorists.